Hello and welcome to the Influencer Boxing Show with, as always, your host, Charlie Woollard. And we're filming on a Thursday. I've got no trim. It's no trim Thursday. I'm in the cream hoodie. My guest today is also in a cream hoodie.
Yep.
And my guest today is back on the show. And I'm so happy to have him back on the show for this one. Gio!
How are we doing?
How you doing, bro?
Bro, I think you're my favourite person to do interviews with. I always love like chatting with you. The last one was really fun. People that know me, my girlfriend, my mom, they always tell me, like, we love it when you're with Charlie. Charlie brings the best out of you. No offense, Fred and the other people that do the chats with me, but for some reason our dynamic is always great, you know?
That's, do you know, I didn't...
We're wearing the same colours, like, you know what I mean? We're linked somehow.
I did not expect you to say that, so that means a lot, so I appreciate it.
No worries,
I
no worries.
appreciate you.
No
Right, a bit of
worries.
loving to kick us off. But what we are going to be talking about in this first episode is the awards, the Influencer Boxing Show Awards. And I think it was really good to have you back on because, as you said, our last podcast was brilliant.
Yeah.
And I think to talk about a roundup of the year and starting off with the Men's Boxer of the Year.
Okay.
There is some good nominations that we have. I know you've got some notes as well. I've got some. What we're going to do is have a little chat. And I think maybe should we say the winner at the start or do you want to talk about it at the end?
No, I think we should talk it through because I've got a bit of like a nominee ranking.
Yeah.
But I feel like maybe if we discuss the winner, it'd be better.
Okay, let's
Because
do
then
that.
we have like a deserved winner rather than
Okay.
like a... Because I doubt we're both aligned on who we think the winner's going to be, right?
I think on a few of the categories, which we'll talk about in other episodes, I think we'll be pretty clear. But if we speak about this one first, there is some big names in my list. I'm sure there is some great names on yours as well. And as well, if you do want to get involved, I know you're not sitting here right on this podcast, but if you want to get involved, drop down in the comments your suggestions for nominations or winners for the Men's Boxer of the Year in the crossover scene. I think that'd be pretty fun. So yeah, let's kick it off. I'm going to kick off with one name to start.
Yeah,
I've put down Deen The Great.
absolutely.
And I think simply because he's had some great fights, not only this year, I know we're talking about this year, but he's not only had a good last year, he's also had a very good this year. Of course, beating his arch nemesis, his rival, Woollard Sharks in that fantastic rematch on the Prime card, which again we were gassed for, and we'll talk about soon. So yeah, I've gone with Deen The Great. You agree?
Absolutely. I think he is one of the best sort of technical fighters on Misfits. Obviously, the highly anticipated rematch. It's early for me. That we were all super excited for against Woollard, lives up to his expectations. And to be honest, Deen actually did way better than I expected him to, especially with a few of the fights that he's had this year that were a little bit lackluster. Like we expected him to get Pulley out of there. He didn't. And then obviously he had a good sort of tag team when they tagged him up with Woollard. And I didn't think he was going to perform as well because Woollard had some great performances this year. You know, he had some big knockouts too. But no, he got the job done. And apparently he broke his hand or something in mid-fight. There was obviously moments in that sort of rematch where it looked like things were going to get away from him. But I think he absolutely deserves to be up there on the sort of best fighters of the year. And probably like a good one for the winner, maybe.
Yeah, because I feel like with the one thing I really like about Deen The Great is he has this sort of character. We've always talked about in the influencer boxing scene that it is maybe better than the boxing scene as such, as they've all got a character to them, which helps sell fights, which helps promote the fight, and etc. With Deen The Great, he's always come across this. I think the more fights he's had and the more wins he's had, the more confidence he's gained, and also this whole swagger about him has got more. If you remember the press conference for the Prime card, walked in with the sunglasses on, he's chilling like almost like a pimp. He's sitting there like this. He knows he's the guy.
Bro.
And again, Woollard was completely different, wasn't he? He was very chilled, very relaxed, didn't like to say much. Whereas Deen's starting to come across now as the guy, and he wants to be the guy.
Exactly, and that's an important thing that we also need to consider when awarding these fighters. It's not just about who's winning the most, because that's easy to sort of decide. This is influencer boxing, it's crossover boxing. The entertainment factor also has to play into it as well. So for me, Deen The Great is one of the most entertaining fighters in the scene because of what he's like on the mic. And you make a good point. In the Misfits Prime card, he was he stole the show. You know what I mean? He was having a go at Woollard. He was having a go at his coaches in the crowd as well. So yeah, he's been super entertaining all around.
Right, that's Deen The Great.
Deen The
I'm
Great.
going to let you go next. Name me another nomination.
The thing is, we've started on quite a big category.
I know.
Here.
I just wanted to kick it off with a bang.
Because
you know?
I think what's the percentage? Maybe like 90% of fighters on Misfits are male.
Yeah,
so
that's true.
There's a lot of people in there. The next person I'm going to say is, because obviously, you know, crossover boxing isn't just limited to Misfits. We also have Kingpin, which obviously no longer is a promotion anymore. There's Creator Clash. There's other promotions. I'm going to say Gib. I feel like Gib is somebody who still to this day gets overlooked a little bit in the scene. I remember at the beginning of the year, I suggested that a good fight would be Salt Papi versus Gib, and I thought that Gib would actually beat Salt Papi if they were to fight. And I was getting absolutely rinsed by people because there was this sort of belief at the beginning of the year, and somewhat deservedly because of how good his performances were, that Salt Papi was invincible, And then obviously this year we saw Gib's return against McBroom. A lot of people thought that because he got dropped in the first fight against McBroom that it would be a similar thing in the rematch, that McBroom might actually win. But I've always been confident in Gib. I've always been confident in his ability because the guy basically retired from YouTube to completely focus on boxing and to work on his skills. He's working with Vidal, he's working with Leon, people like that. And he put on a great performance against Austin McBroom in the rematch and got him to quit. The guy quit in the rematch. And then he fights Jarvis, who we saw recently against Bdave, is an exceptional fighter, one of the most talented, technically gifted boxers we have in this space. And he beat him, So in my opinion, and also he's super entertaining as well, He put a great when the Kingpin tournament was first revealed, it was revealed in Gib's video, and he used the Skyfall music. He put this great video together. Granted, I wish he uploaded more often, but Gib is such an entertaining fighter and deserves to be, in my opinion, one of the male fighters of the year.
7-figure Gibber, they call him.
7-figure Gibber.
That's literally what they call him. But didn't he come out? He come out and said that he's sort of done now with it all. I swear that he said this.
Well, he said that, but maybe that's probably something to do with the fact that Kingpin, he was basically carrying Kingpin in the sense of like
he was the guy. He was almost the KSI of Kingpin. Exactly. Such, wasn't he?
Yeah, exactly. He was the favorite to win. Obviously, the Kenny fight would have been great to see. And it's gutting because I feel like I was a bit skeptical of the Kingpin tournament when it first came around, but I went to the quarterfinals. It was amazing to watch. The second event was great, and obviously whatever happened. But I would have loved to have seen a final between Gib and Kenny. But I do feel like once Misfits find a good opponent for him, and Mams can have a chat with him, they could probably get it done.
I think as well, I'm really glad you did mention Gib. It's actually not on my list, by the way, and I'm sure you guys in the comments down below have probably given him a mention. It's just he hasn't had too many fights this year, has he? But again, when he has fought, he has made an impact. He has sort of created that sort of news and that noise about him. Because, again, previous years, despite, obviously, when he lost against Jake Paul, there was that sort of saga and the sort of arc, as I like to call it. We've seen with Deji, like we've seen with Kenny. When you lose, you've got to try and come back. And he come back. I remember the first fight he fought McBroom. I don't want to talk too much about last year. But when he did fight McBroom in that first fight, I mean, it was incredible. He got knocked down. He ended up winning by knocking him out.
He absolutely destroyed him.
Yeah.
And that's what I thought was going to happen from the start. I remember me and True Geordie did a preview before that fight, and I said, I have no doubt in my mind he's going to absolutely annihilate him, and that's exactly what he did. And it was one, in my opinion, of the most emphatic and dominant performances we've ever seen from anyone in this space ever. So the reason why I have Gib on this list mainly is because I think technically he actually is one of the best in the scene.
I think that's a big shout. And I think he's going to be up there. I'm going to go with another name next. And I don't know if this is on your list. Yep. And by the way, we haven't really spoken too much off camera about these. We wanted to
saved it for this.
Yeah, we wanted to
may have some disagreements.
I think it's more natural as well. I've put Anthony Taylor down.
Yep.
He's a man that comes with so much presence, not only in his sort of, and it's going to make you laugh, not even his size, because he's not the tallest man in the world, is he?
No.
But he comes with presence with his voice because he is the loudest man in the room. And let me tell you a little secret behind the scenes. When we do go to these shows and we interview all the stars, he is the loudest man in the room.
Yeah.
You could be doing an interview with Tommy Fury or KSI or Logan Paul or anyone. He will be there talking about himself off camera.
The pretty boy!
And he sounds like... he sounds like the zebra off Madagascar.
Chris Rock.
Yeah. He literally sounds like identical to him. Like, it's scary. It's so funny because he embraces it. But anyway, enough on that. I'm going to put Anthony Taylor up here because I think... Listen, he talks the most, but he has won some really big fights this year. And again, he doesn't get knocked out. When he's in the ring against these tough opponents, he might lose on points, but he's going the whole way. And he's not getting knocked down. He's not getting knocked out.
Yeah.
He's taking you all the way. And we've seen this with Salt Papi when he fought him. Everyone thought, this is it, Salt Papi. I mean, I think, it was only 3 rounds, I think, as well.
It should have been way longer than 3 rounds. It should have been at least 5 rounds. There was a lot of debate over that, but it ended up being 3, yeah.
And that was the disappointing part about that fight, because that could have been a brilliant fight if it was a little bit more, maybe 6 rounds or etc. But even so, he still beat Salt Papi.
Yeah.
A name that everybody has talked about, especially last year, about him being the future star coming into this year.
Yeah.
Which I feel gutted for him, because he still is very good technically.
Yeah.
But I think there's a little bit more talk on him in terms of his weight class and sort of solidifying that weight class, because we've seen when he's come down a weight, he might be a bit sharper, but he loses that power. But whereas Anthony Taylor, he's always been the same sort of weight. He's always got the same style.
Yeah.
He knows what he's good at and he sticks to it.
Exactly.
And I think that's why I put him in this nomination and for this category.
Yeah, I mean, the two sort of main categories that I am using to, define what is the male fighter of the year are, it's the skill, the technical skill, which he definitely has, and the entertainment value. And at the beginning of the year, I'm going to be honest, I wasn't the biggest fan of Anthony Taylor. He used to make me cringe a lot. I used to watch the press conferences, watch the interviews and think, who does this guy think he is? He's not an influencer. He actually is a professional fighter who's come into the scene and is just trying to sort of like steal the show for himself. And I was quite happy to see him lose originally against Idris Virgo at the beginning of the year. But then I remember, obviously, when he fought Sol Papi, he took on that challenge. No one wanted to fight Sol Papi. He beat Sol Papi, but one key thing to remember about Anthony Taylor is in that Misfits 007 press conference, he absolutely stole the show. This was a KSI main event, and during the press conference, he came in dressed as James Bond.
I remember him and Deen the Great come in, didn't they?
Yeah, they sat him in the middle for whatever reason, and he stole the show. And in my opinion, during that time, he made me a fan. It absolutely made me a fan. And, you've given him a lot of credit there for beating Sol Papi, which he absolutely did. He's not got the most exciting fighting style, but not only did he beat Sol Papi, he also beat somebody else who's very highly regarded in the scene in King Kenny. I mean, at the beginning of the year, if you were to sort of name your sort of top 5 Misfits fighters, Sol Papi and King Kenny are at the top of that list. So in terms of names that he's beaten and entertainment value, absolutely Anthony Taylor deserves to be on this list of nominees. Does he deserve to get the top spot? Probably not, because ultimately we have to remember he is a professional fighter, And that's the difficulty we have here, because we do have some of these pro fighters that are are sort of blurred in there, But what I like about Anthony Taylor, and why I do believe he has a place in the scene, because after his last performance, there's been a lot of talk about him not really belonging in the scene because he is a pro fighter, and obviously his fighting style isn't great. But what I like about him is he has this Tommy Fury element about him, which is that he is kind of like this target for these influencers, this sword in the stone, so to speak. Like, who can be the one to beat him? Because if someone eventually does beat him, then their level is elevated massively. If one of these influencers can go and beat Anthony Taylor, something that King Kenny couldn't do, something that Sol Papi couldn't do, it could generate a new star.
100%. I'm glad you've said that, because there is, I think, last thing on Anthony Taylor before we move on is that I really, like you said, he's not the most exciting fighter to watch. All of his fights are quite sluggish. Yeah, can be quite slow. But again, he's tough. He's got a big chin on him. Yeah, small man, but he's got a big chin. He does not get knocked down. He does not get knocked out. And he, like you said, he is a man that people want to fight and people want to beat. Yeah. Not only to shut him up and humble him, but...
And I'll say one last thing. He isn't an influencer, but he understands the game and he understands how to build storylines.
It's because of his personality. It makes him look like an influencer, doesn't it?
No,
and that's important in this scene.
Yeah, he's great on Twitter. He's always getting involved with the community. And I know, obviously, you've seen recently at Misfits 011, when I believe it was Anderson Silva's son who beat, was it OJ Rose? Mm-hmm. Anthony gets in there, he's cutting a promo, wants to fight him in Brazil. He knows how to get people excited. And also, he has the element about him which people don't love him. People don't like. It's kind of like the heel. They want to see him lose, and that's going to get people buying tickets and wanting to watch him all the time.
100%. Right. I did last, didn't I? It's your turn next. Give me another name.
I'm going to name somebody who actually is at the top of my list.
Okay.
Right now, I think he is a good sort of like nominee, maybe for number 1. And I'm not just saying this because he's a friend of mine, but I've got good justification behind it, and that's Bdave.
I knew you were going to say that. As soon as you said good friend, I sort of knew you were going to say that.
The reason I have him up there is because this is an entertainment game. The Misfits isn't about pro boxing. It isn't about boxing skill. It's about entertainment. And he has fought 5 times this year. And not just in the normal fights. He's fought in the... so he began the year against Pineda. That was a 1-on-1 match. Obviously, he lost that. But the thing is, he had no idea who he was fighting. It was the first time we'd ever seen a mystery opponent element brought into Misfits. Then the second time he fought was in the tag team with Pineda. He got the only knockout of the night. It was such an entertaining fight. Obviously, the bromance, you could say, between him and Pineda was born then. Such the highlight of the night. Then it was the Survivor tag at Misfits 008. It was a new sort of like unique concept, which I don't think is going to be brought back. But, you know, he put on the show. He did a lot of content around that. Super entertaining in the build-up. Misfits had this sort of great sort of like house they put them in. He sort of stole the show there. And then obviously the tag team at Misfits 10, the Prime card. In my opinion, that was probably the most entertaining fight of the night. Like, there was a storyline there, like, Pineda got knocked down by Wasabi, tags in Bdave, Bdave then knocks down Wasabi. You know what I mean? It was, like, super exciting. And then to finish the year off, his 5th fight of the year. I don't think there's a single fighter, by the way, on Misfits that's fought 5 times in 1 year. I may be wrong, but I doubt it. I highly doubt it.
Yeah, I was going to say, he is the line I loved someone used in the presser, and I believe it was either Alex Wasabi or Nick LMAO.
I think it was Nick.
Was it Nick when he said, "You are literally the default skin of Misfits"? And it was brilliant, because when someone says that, obviously it's a dig, but then when you actually look at it, you think, hang on, everybody uses the default skin when you play a game. Let's just say Fortnite, for example. Everyone uses it, because that's what you start with. So that's a good thing, right?
Okay.
And when he said it, I was like, hang on, that just means that he is like a massive part of Misfits.
Yeah.
He's so close with Mams, he's so close with Kala, clearly, in the sense of they can trust him, they'll know they can put him on, he's always going to turn up, he's always going to put on a good show. And like you said, I think that's really good, actually, not just because he's a good friend of yours. And we actually had him on the fight after the weigh-in reaction, which, by the way, if you haven't checked out, please do go and check that video out, because it is brilliant. We had some massive names on that, and it was really, really good fun to film. And that was, of course, the weigh-in reaction after the Misfits card. But Bdave was one of our last guests, and I remember turning to him and saying, "You are in incredible shape. This is the best shape I've seen you in." I didn't cover the York Hall event, so I didn't really get to see too much of how he was looking, but I believe it was pretty similar.
Well, he actually dropped down to 155, which
so he was probably looking even sharper then.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Like, he's entertaining. He's willing to put in the work. Whenever I speak to him, he's always training. He trains out of Jackrabbit Gym with a lot of the other sort of Misfits fighters that train out there. And he finished the year off in a main event against Jarvis, somebody who, by the way, just had a fight with Gib, who looked amazing in that fight, even though he didn't win. As we mentioned before, Jarvis is one of the most technically advanced fighters in the scene.
He trained at the Mayweather gym as well.
Yeah,
he's trained with some big names. And as you said, Bdave's got in there after fighting all different types of rules and things with the tag team tornado tag and the...
Less than a month, I believe, after his last fight. So he basically got the call and went straight back into camp, had to drop down to 155, which isn't a natural weight for him. He's committed, he's dedicated, he's entertaining, and he had a great fight against Jarvis, although he got knocked down and took some massive shots, proved that he has an iron chin. In my opinion, one of the best fighters in Misfits in terms of like entertainment. Not the best technically, but for me, male fighter of the year winner is Bdave.
Okay, well, that is your number one.
That's my number one.
Okay, all right.
That's my number one.
That's interesting.
I think all in all, we can't just base this off who's the most dominant, who wins the most. For me, it's entertainment factor, you know?
No, I completely agree with that, and I'm glad you said that. And again, if you do agree with Gio, let us know in the comments if you think Bdave...
I think that's going to be quite an unpopular opinion.
Yeah, but this is the beauty of it. This is the beauty of it. I feel like I'm not someone that's going to sit there and absolutely slander you about it. I'm not going to sit on the fence, but I'm not going to be someone that's going to be like, you're wrong, you're this, you're that. But I think he is a good shout for it, because he has had the most fights, as you said. He's a tough opponent every time he has fought. Has caused some great moments as well. I mean, I'd never forget that entrance he had with Pineda and things, of them two being
just
this
the
partnership.
Two of us.
It's brilliant. It's incredible.
Absolutely.
So he's a great shout. And I think as well, we have to factor in the entertainment value of the business, because arguably it is the business.
It's show business.
It is show business.
You know?
Right, so I'm going to move on to another one. I'm going to go with Slim. I think the Hitman, I think he is a fighter that, again, last year come out. I remember after the first Misfits card, and he fought on that.
Yeah.
And he was brilliant. And I feel like ever since, he's just gradually got better and better and better, and he's put on better fights. One of the fights that stands out for me, I believe it was last year, correct me if I'm wrong, was the fight against Ryan Taylor. Was that last year or was this year?
You know what? I think that was this year. It was over 5, right?
Was it this year? I'm pretty sure it was this year.
But he also fought Tom Zanetti.
That's another fighter I've got down for another category, which I'll talk about soon. But the reason why I mention this is because Slim, again, isn't the most physical guy in the world.
No,
when you see him, he really isn't built. And listen, you haven't
He's
got
very
to be...
slim, as the name would suggest.
Very true. You haven't got to be massively built to be a boxer. Of
No.
course, there's different weight classes, etc. But with Slim, he comes with so much power.
Yeah.
And he's very quick, of course, because of his size. And everyone he's fought, he always puts on a show.
No,
he
you're
always
absolutely
puts on a show. And again, he'll either go the distance or he will end it in 1 or 2 rounds. We've seen it in multiple fights from Slim. And again, he's another fighter that has had a fair few fights this year.
Yeah.
So that's why I've put him in up for the men's boxer of the year, simply because Entertainment value, he's brilliant.
Yep.
I'm going to keep sort of underlining the entertainment value because I'm glad you said that. Entertainment value, he's brilliant because he comes with that swagger again. He's very humble as well, a very religious man as well. So he comes with his sort of his thoughts and feelings on that, which I think is brilliant. And as well, we look at the sort of aspect of him being the hitman Slim and this sort of he always does this, and he'll be sitting there like this press conference after the weigh, and he'll be ready to wind up his right fist. He does it all the time. But again, we look at the physical value of him. What he's done in the ring, I think is phenomenal for him, to be honest with you. He's changed his life. Misfits completely changed his life in terms of sort of the money aspects of things. And to finish up with, on my opinion on Slim, again, the fights he's had.
Well, that's the thing.
It's fantastic.
Especially his last fight. If we look at him towards the beginning of the year, so I'm with you. I'm not too sure exactly when that first fight was with Ryan Taylor, but there was this there was this idea that Slim was getting not as good as we thought he was, because he was knocking all these people out in the years, building up to this year. And then he had these close fights that could have gone either way. The Ryan Taylor fight was like that. The Zanetti fight was like that. So people were kind of thinking, we don't really want to see this guy as much, And then he goes to fight Salt Papi, who was knocking people out. Obviously, he just had the best fight with Anthony Taylor. And he won a lot of people. Well, he won a lot of fans back because of how he dealt with Salt Papi.
I can say it wasn't, and I remember I just mentioned there about Salt Papi's weight class and him not sort of finding an area which he's comfortable in yet.
Yeah.
And when he fought Salt Papi, which again, by the way, I keep saying again, but by the way, it is that was a fight that was arguably the biggest fight of the Prime card. Salt Papi Slim was one of the biggest announcements.
Yeah.
And as you said, he dealt with him very, very
easily.
Well,
Anthony Taylor would beat him on points. Like, Slim actually got him out of there, and he lost the first 2 rounds. People will remember that fight as Salt Papi losing and getting then Slim winning, but people forget as well that Slim lost the first 2 rounds and actually came back to get that finish, and it was exceptional. I think he's got a massive future ahead of him. I would love to see him fight Gib. I think that would be a great fight. Both of them very technically advanced, very evenly matched, and very different in terms of their styles. So I feel like it would make for a very entertaining fight, and that might be one, as we mentioned before, that actually brings Gib onto Misfits, which is inevitable in my opinion.
Fingers crossed, because we all want that. We all want Gib back in the scene, and again on Misfits, I think he'll suit them to a T. So that's very easy, simple. We both agree with Slim in there. Throw me another name.
So this may be a bit of a bait one, but KSI. Does KSI deserve to be on this list?
I was going to say, should we say this is our last nomination?
Okay, we'll cap it here. But obviously, with JJ, he's had some exceptional fights this year. Exceptional finishes, let's say. The Joe Fournier one, it was an elbow, but ultimately everyone knew that was going one way.
You could tell by the start of it. I know, listen... round 1 doesn't necessarily define a fight. We've seen with all the biggest fights across boxing, not just in the Misfits scene, that couple rounds everything can change, right? Yeah. But the way it was going straight away, it was only, what was it, a 6-round fight as well? Yeah,
it was clear it was only going one way. And, he's actually managed to level up his competition. Last year was his big comeback. He had the big fights.
2 fights in one night.
Swans and Pineda. He managed to deal with both of those. Great. But at the same time, he wants that Jake Paul fight. So he wanted to find out this year if JJ is on the level of a Jake Paul to make that fight even, because at the beginning of the year, a lot of people would have still said Jake Paul is levels ahead. You've been doing this, he's been boxing. You're never going to be able to meet him on the level he's at now. But this year, JJ has proved to all of us that he absolutely has the ability to beat Jake Paul, and now people see that as a 50-50 fight. If anything, actually more people after the Tommy Fury fight are leaning towards JJ, because obviously there's this belief by a lot of people that JJ was robbed in that fight. And, as we mentioned, the Fournier finish was controversial, but one finish that absolutely wasn't controversial, and we'll get onto it later when we talk about knockouts, that was emphatic, was at Misfits 004, Temper. JJ's knockout over FaZe Temper. It was absolutely clinical. I've never seen, it was one of the best knockouts I've ever seen in
Michael
influencer
Venom
boxing
Page
as a whole. Very, very, yeah.
It was so funny, because the reason why I mentioned that name, shout out Michael Venom Page, by the way, because I remember I was watching the fight with him.
Oh, really?
I was next to him in the crowd. Yeah, it was me, It was me. Shout out Mo Said as well, KSI's
Mo.
editor. It was me, Mo, and Michael Venom Page, and I believe his missus. I'm pretty sure it was his missus. But we were all watching the fight together, and obviously he knocked him out. Everyone's gone mental, and I'm very sort of on the fence with these things.
Yeah.
I wanted JJ to win that fight simply because you guys get more content. I mean, it's obvious, right? But still, like, it was an amazing fight to watch, and the way it went down, and the promo and things, and KSI knocking him out. And I remember I turned to Michael Venom Page. I was like, mate, that was unbelievable. He went, literally, he was like, this is exactly what we talked about. And I saw a video when I come out, because I'm not too clued up in that sort of in that world. I know a bit about it, but I don't know sort of the ins and outs like maybe like you and other people, right? But I remember seeing a video of the knockout between him and Michael Venom Page, and it's literally the same. Like,
it was the setup.
It was almost the same. It was a sort of like
It's the stance. It was that left hook, good night, and obviously one of the best knockouts in Misfits history. And JJ really got the year off to a bang. At the end of the year, obviously, the Tommy Fury fight, if we're being completely honest, wasn't the most entertaining fight to watch. It was actually quite a difficult fight to watch, but ultimately, the main point that JJ proved this year is he is on the same level as a Jake Paul, and that fight would be a 50-50 if it was to happen next year, which I hope it will, but with all the stuff that's going on at the moment, we don't know.
No, and this is the thing. I think I've actually put KSI in my list as well, not just to sound like a fanboy or anything like that. It's got nothing to do with it. Entertainment value he brings. I mean, he's been doing it for years, not just with the boxing scene. That is literally what he's known for. This is where the sort of the brand of KSI has come from. So that's in its own category. Then we've got the physical element of it. I mean, the guy trains like an absolute machine. And again, if you don't know this, get to know. I mean, he trains, tell me the
Shoot Fighters.
Which is London obviously the home of, I know Derek Chisora does things there.
MVP obviously
MVP, Idris Fergo does stuff there. Arms.
Yeah.
There's loads of different people. But again, he's got a great team around him, good people around him. You can call him yes men, you can call him whatever you want, but the guy trains hard, and that is the most important thing as well. So that's in a category of itself. The fights as well, we mentioned temper, which, I mean, amazing. We then mentioned Joe Fournier, yes, of what's happened. I mean, we could say it would go that way, but who knows? It's boxing, anything can happen. And then the Tommy Fury fight, which for me, I remember sitting there watching that. I thought, yeah, he's not going to win this. Like the first 2 rounds, I'm thinking, yeah, okay, he will. And then as the fight was getting longer and longer, and there was more clinching, there was more hugging, things like that, right? It just didn't seem that way, did it?
It was a clash of styles that made it very hard for both of them to really do anything. And that's why it's very hard to score, because it looks for most of the fight as if they're not actually doing anything, either of them. But yeah, I feel like, generally, I mean, 9 times out of 10, JJ always brings the entertainment value. In that fight, he tried to. He just didn't have a great dance partner in Tommy Fury. Tommy Fury likes to clinch. He likes to, play things dirty sometimes. So I feel like it was more a case of what Tommy did than what JJ didn't.
Yeah, and I think, again, I keep saying again, but it's just, I'm so rusty. I've not done this for a while, but it's important to mention KSI in this because of the fights he's had, but as well, the fights he can have as well. Remember, he is a guy that is the business. Yeah. He is the business. He is the CEO or the chairman of
Mr. Misfits.
Such. He is Mr. Misfits, right? So it is silly to not put him in here, but I think it is deserved for him to be up there. My personal opinion, he doesn't win the award this year, which we are going to move on to now. With all the nominees we've named, so we'll go over them again. We've got Deen the Great, Slim, Anthony Taylor, KSI, Bdave. Yeah. And that's it? 5? We say 5?
Yeah.
5.
Okay, yeah.
I think it was 5. But out of them names, in the comments right now, let us know who you would give the award to for Men's Boxer of the Year here on 101 Boxing. But we are going to go with... I'm going to let Gio go with it, to be fair. And then obviously, I'll just agree.
It's hard for me not to go with Bdave, but not because he's a mate, not because he's a mate. Honestly, because of the entertaining fights. He has had 5 fights this year and he's won 1 of them. But that's what Misfits is about. It's not about winning fights. It's about going on and putting on a show for fans, getting people invested in the storylines, being funny on social media, getting people like wanting to watch the fights. And Bdave does that repeatedly. So in my opinion, he has to take it.
Okay, so you're going to go with...
And 5 times in 1 year, bro. You got to understand this.
That's nuts. That is nuts.
He is not a pro boxer. He is an influencer, and his last fight, he was a main event for a hell of a fight in Jarvis and had to cut down to 155. 5 times in 1 year. This guy deserves that crown. Okay,
that's fine. Well, you go with that. I'm going to go with Slim, just simply because he's had...
Slim's co-second.
Let's just say bigger fights for again, you said this, it's not just Misfits. We're not just talking about Misfits here, but he has had some huge fights on Misfits, taking out some huge guys in the scene, and it's very promising for him next year. So award's going to go for him. But let's just say Bdave and Slim are the men's Boxer of the Year. Can we have a round of applause, please, in the studio? Yep. There we go. There we go. And we are going to move on to another category. So please make sure you stay tuned on the channel here on One-on-One Boxing with myself, Charlie Woollard, as your host, and Gio. We'll catch you in another video.